yesterday, the Court of Appeals in California issued a decision in the case that was challenging President Trump's deployment and federalization of the National Guard into Portland. The trial court had found that Trump didn't have the authority, the laws didn't allow him to send the National Guard to Portland, but the appellate court, in a vote of 2-1, voted that indeed he did. This case is concerning for a number of reasons, besides the safety and constitutional rights of the people of Portland. And I want to break down what the legal issue was and why we all ought to be concerned about this decision. So there was a law passed in 1807, the Insurrection Act, that allows the president to federalize or deploy the National Guard only under very limited circumstances. Otherwise, the Constitution and the laws of the United States do not allow the President of the United States to use the military or the National Guard to police or to do routine policing, to police the people. Normally, the National Guard is mobilized by a governor in the case of an emergency, say there's a natural disaster, or when we saw civil unrest related to various police killings, where the situation outpaced what the local police department could handle. It's at the discretion of the governor to call in the National Guard, not the President of the United States. And so what we're seeing now, of course, is Trump saying these cities are out of control, this one, that one, that one, I'm going to send in the National Guard. And the Insurrection Act, this 1807 law, limits into 3 circumstances when the president can mobilize, federalize, and deploy the National Guard over the objections or without the request of the governor. The first is that the United States has to be invaded or in danger of invasion by a foreign nation. Obviously, that's not happening in this case. The second is that there's a rebellion or a danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. The third is that the president is unable, with the regular forces that are available to him, to execute the laws of the United States. And so the federal government, the Trump administration, claimed these last 2 circumstances, that there was a rebellion or a danger of a rebellion in Portland, and that the president was not able to execute the laws of the United States because of the civil unrest in Portland. And what the appellate court held yesterday is that the president had satisfied this third requirement. And because they found that he had satisfied that, they didn't actually examine the second requirement about rebellion. So they found that the president had the authority to nationalize, federalize the troops, the National Guard, bring them into Portland, because he was not able to execute the laws of the United States. Now, the grounds on which they found this were subject to a standard that was established in the case where Governor Newsom in California challenged the deployment of the National Guard in Los Angeles. And there, the same court, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, established this standard that that the federal court's review of the federalization of the National Guard in circumstances like this was very deferential, that the court should defer very heavily to the judgment of the executive, of the president, and that where there was a showing of facts that provided a colorable basis to support the conclusion that the president was unable to execute the law, the courts will say, okay, that colorable basis, whatever colorable basis means, is enough to give the president authority, the use of National Guard troops in cases like Portland, Los Angeles, and we're going to see it in New York in no time. And one of the observations they said is that the fact that the president exaggerated the extent of the problem on social media is not relevant. And why this decision is so important, and why the issue here is so important, is that the people are taking to the streets, exercising First Amendment rights, really sacred rights in our Constitution, to protest decisions being made by this government, decisions which other courts in the United States have held are unconstitutional. So the people are protesting the unconstitutional exercise of law, of power by President Trump. And then this federal court says he is allowed to quash those protests, bring in the National Guard, arrest people, use tear gas, use these very violent measures to put down these protests because he cannot execute unconstitutional laws. That's where the rub is that in a democracy, the people have the constitutional right to stand up and object to the abuse of power by the federal government or otherwise illegal misreading of the law, as we've seen with ICE detentions, with the sweeping in and taking of people off the street and then deporting them with no due process to horrible places around the world. The people are protesting that peacefully, and in some cases in little frog costumes and stuff, to prove their peacefulness. And that may interrupt the execution of the law because the people are objecting to it. So there's a loop here that cuts the democratic process out. He is engaging in illegal and unconstitutional policies and exercises of power. The people are protesting that peacefully with rights secured under the First Amendment, and then he brings in the National Guard to cut off those protests because he says that they're interfering with his ability to execute the laws of the United States, but the way he's doing it is unconstitutional. I worry for the democracy, I worry for the First Amendment, and I worry for our ability as we, the people, to object to the actions that are being taken. I'm getting choked up just talking about it, by this president that violate the fundamental rights of the people secured under the Constitution and laws of the United States.